Hey, what's up guys, it's Matt with the Movement System. In this video, we're gonna break down a full training week for 3 different half marathon runners. Whether you're a casual runner just trying to finish your first half marathon, or you're chasing an elite time, this video will help you structure your training the right way and understand how much you should be doing each week. We're gonna show you the number of runs per week, the breakdown of how you should be doing each run, as well as the strength training that should support your running to be successful at hitting your next half marathon PR. So let's look at what a typical training week should look like with 4 runs per week, or about 16 to 20 miles per week to put you on track to that 2-hour finish time. So here's the breakdown of that typical training week. And this is the program that I would use at about the 6-week mark of a 12-week program leading up to a race. And in general, I think 3 months is a good amount of time to prepare for a half marathon. So let's break it down. On Monday, we're gonna start the week with a 55-minute easy run. Now you might be wondering, what exactly is an easy run? Well, there are 2 different ways you can think about this, and one would be with heart rate and the other would be with pace. And different runners will prefer one or the other. If you're measuring heart rate, for example with a running watch or preferably with a chest strap, then a good target heart rate for this run might be around 70% of your maximum heart rate. Now, if this is your first time training for a half marathon, you may not actually know what your maximum heart rate is. While there is a simple equation to estimate your maximum heart rate with 220 minus your age, that can vary quite a bit between individuals. So I actually do recommend doing a progressive heart rate test. So consider testing your maximum heart rate with something like the Bruce protocol if you have never done so before, to get an accurate idea of what your max heart rate actually is. Now, a lot of runners find it difficult to stay at 70% of their maximum heart rate, but there's actually a trick that you can use, and it's what I recommend to most of my runners that I coach. And that is utilizing something called a walk run. Basically, it involves breaking that 55 minutes down and, for example, running for 4 minutes, walking for 1 minute, to keep your heart rate down. And it really is important to keep your heart rate down for these longer or easy runs because 1, it actually trains the aerobic system whenever you keep your heart rate low. And then 2, you don't build up as much fatigue as if you let your heart rate go too high. And then if you are targeting pace for this easy run, a good target might be around 10 minutes to 12 minutes and 20 seconds per mile. Okay, so that was just the first run of the week on Monday. We have 3 more runs to cover. And the next run is gonna be on Wednesday, and I would recommend doing intervals here. And for a runner with a 2-hour finish time goal, this will be the only speed training session per week. The rest will be all easy runs. But on Wednesday, I would recommend something like 8 by 1 minute efforts on 1 minute of recovery. So you still want to do a warm up, for example, 5 minutes of walking, 5 minutes of light jogging, but then you're going to go into 1 minute hard efforts at nearly the maximum pace that you can sustain for that 60 seconds, followed by 60 seconds of recovery. This is meant to be anaerobic and be the one time where you're really striding out and working on some speed. All right, and then the next run is going to come on Friday, and that is going to be another 55-minute easy run. Same thing as Monday, targeting that 70% maximum heart rate, or around 10 to 12 minutes per mile. All right, and then finally, the last run of the week on Sunday is the classic long run, a staple of half marathon training. That is going to be a 90-minute easy run. This is obviously going to be the longest run of the week, but the goal is still the same 70% heart rate, or about 10 to 12 minutes per mile. Okay, so those are the 4 runs that make up the training week, but I would also recommend 2 strength training sessions with 2 to 3 exercises each. For example, this could include exercises like step-ups, calf raises, or even a squat hold with a band row. We want to include just a few basic exercises that hit the main muscle groups involved with running. And if you're consistent with a plan like this for about 12 weeks with small progressions each week and then a little taper leading up to the race, then you're gonna be on track to race a 2-hour half marathon. Okay, now let's move up to level 2 and talk about a 1 hour and 40 minute half marathon. So to finish a half marathon in 1 hour and 40 minutes, you're gonna need a race pace of 7 minutes and 38 seconds per mile. And this is actually where I was for my most recent half marathon. So let's take a look at what a typical training week looks like with 5 runs per week, or about 20 to 30 miles per week. On Monday, we're gonna start with a 60-minute easy run. Same as before, this is going to be targeting a 70% maximum heart rate. However, for targeting this hour and 40-minute finish time, we're gonna need a slightly faster pace, around 8 minutes and 20 seconds to 10 minutes per mile, roughly 6 to 7.5 on the treadmill. Our second run of the week is going to be on Wednesday, and that's going to be our speed efforts. We're going to include a warm-up for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then run 8 efforts of 2 minutes on about 1 minute of recovery. You'll want to push a challenging pace for that 2 minutes, and that will be a little bit different for everybody. Moving on to our next run, on Friday we have a 60-minute easy run, exactly the same as our Monday run. Moving on to Saturday, we're going to actually include a tempo run at this point, so we're going to go 35 minutes at about our race pace. So for our 1 hour and 40-minute finish time, this 35-minute tempo run could be targeting about that 7 minute and 38 second per mile time, or a little bit faster. And then finally, our last run of the week is on Saturday, our long run, and that is going to be an hour and 40-minute run. Again, steady long run pace here, about 8:20 to 10 minutes per mile. And we really don't want to see our heart rate higher than about 75% of maximum throughout this run. I will say, don't be afraid to take walk breaks, especially if you're going up a steep hill or something like that. It's actually better for this long run to be consistent, keep your heart rate low, rather than burning yourself out. I would recommend a bit more dedicated strength work to support this running. For example, barbell step-ups, barbell calf raise, a plank push-up for some core and endurance work, or even a single leg RDL. These are all great exercises for building the core and the hip strength that's actually required to stay healthy throughout a running program. And I will say, what helps a lot of runners out is actually having a full program on a calendar and following it. And if you've never followed a formal running program, I would highly recommend it. And this is a good time to mention that we just released our full 12-week intermediate half marathon program. It includes all the runs laid out for you each week with progressions from week to week, as well as strength training to complement your running. The program is in the Train Heroic app, so once you sign up, you can just assign it to your training calendar so that the 12th week of the program lines up with your race day. That way you'll have a progressive program that leads you all the way to your race. This is a lot more convenient than trying to follow a PDF or screenshots on your phone. It actually allows you to track your runs right there in the app and see your progress from week to week. So if you're looking for a half marathon training program and that would be helpful for you, you can use code RUNPR2025 to get 20% off. I'll put a link in the description below. Okay, now let's look though at level 3, a 1 hour and 20-minute finisher. To run a 1 hour and 20-minute half marathon, you'll need to average a 6 minute and 7 second pace for 13.1 miles. Let's look at what a typical training week looks like with 6 runs per week, or about 40 to 60 miles per week. On Monday, we're gonna start with that easy run for 65 minutes. Tuesday, we're gonna go to a 60-minute easy run. Wednesday, we're gonna go to our speed session, which is exactly the same as the previous 8 by 2 minutes on 1 minute recovery. Friday, we're gonna go to a 65-minute easy run. Saturday, we're gonna go to a 40-minute tempo run. And then Sunday, we're gonna go to our long run, and that's gonna be an hour and 50 minutes. Generally, for this finish time, you want your easy run pace to be around that 7 minute and 15 second to 8 minute and 30 second pace. Of course, it's a good time to mention that you have to build up this over time, so don't expect to jump into this high volume program right away. You really wanna build your mileage up gradually over time. All right, now I wanna give you some pro tips to make sure that you're successful with any of these training programs that you might try. First, it's important that you're making sensible progressions from week to week. What I showed you is a typical training week, or what about week 6 would look like in any of these training programs. However, you have to start where you're actually at now and build up to that. And I would recommend about a 10% progression per week to get there. So if you're currently running 10 miles per week, then you want to go to 11 miles, and then to 12 miles, then to 13 miles. You don't want to jump from 10 miles per week to a 20 mile per week program, because that's going to increase your risk of injury quite significantly. If you're doing a time-based progression, and the programs that I laid out today were all time-based, then you would want to progress, for example, from 55 minutes to 60 minutes to 65 minutes, leading up to your race. And then generally for the speed work, I tend to keep that about the same, and then just progress by increasing the speed in those sessions. Another important thing to note here is that each of these programs can be modified. Of course, this is just one example of what you can do. You can choose to include 2 tempo sessions, you can choose to include 2 interval sessions, but generally I do recommend relying heavily on those easy aerobic sessions because half marathon training is aerobic, and that's the system that you really want to build up to be successful in that distance. I'm going to put a link to some of my favorite running products below. For example, like these Perform Better thick, strong mini bands, which I think are really good for some exercises that you can do to support your running. And I'll link my favorite running shorts as well. If you guys do have any questions about half marathon training, feel free to drop them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer. And if you are training for a race, I hope this is really helpful for you to see kind of what it takes to get each different finish time. And just remember to build up slowly and focus on consistency because that's what pays off in the long run. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.